Hello everyone, and thank you for your interest in the Tennessee Shooting Sports Program. Today we're going to be discussing the Genesis Archery Division. My name is Aaron Sperling. I'm a Level 2 National Archery Instructor and also part of the Tennessee State Committee. So let's talk about what a Genesis bow is. It has a universal draw length. It is considered a compound bow. It does have an idler wheel at the top and a cam at the bottom, which are the classifications for a compound. Some things that are different in a Genesis bow compared to a regular compound is these have no let-off. A traditional compound bow, when you draw it back, once the cam rolls over, you're holding 60 to 80% less of the original draw weight. That's not true of a Genesis. However, the Genesis only go up to 20 pounds, so it's a very good beginning bow. The draw weight's adjustable from 10 to 20 pounds. They are available in right and left hand. It's important when ordering. You want to make sure you order the bows you would need for your program. All of it is machined aluminum, the components as well, and then it has composite limbs. So if you're planning on starting a Genesis program, how many bows do you need? Well, it really depends on how you're going to run your program. Pre-COVID, I would have said you probably need 5 bows, and your kids would be sharing bows. Now, if possible, I would try to do 10. And the reason that I chose these numbers is because if you have a certified coach, that means they've attended one of the state trainings to be a level 1 archery coach in your county. They can have up to 10 archers on the line shooting at a time. So if you had 10 bows, you could have a full line. And each child would then have their own target. And we'll talk about targets in just a little bit. So some things to mention about the bows, and we'll go over arrows and all that in just a minute. But the bow comes set up as you have to keep it, meaning that you can't add anything to a Genesis bow to shoot in the Genesis class. It has a flipper style rest on it. The draw weight is adjustable. As we already mentioned, the length, it'll fit anybody. And the back, it has a little taped plastic knock where you would knock the arrow. That cannot be replaced with a metal one. Okay, so if you are planning on shooting in the 4-H competitions, or you want to go a different route with this and shoot in the NASP competitions, which is National Archery in the Schools program, it cannot have a brass knock or a metal knock. So you have to keep that style of knock. If it comes off, which they tend to do, you can tie a knot there to use as a string knock. You can use serving string. You can use dental floss. You can use a rubber grommet, several different things, but you cannot use anything metal on that serving on where you would knock the arrow. So that's just a little bit about the bows and how many you need to start. So let's move on and talk about arrows. The official arrow for the Genesis program is the Easton 1820, and it is marked on each arrow. They're made of 70-75 aerospace aluminum. They have the uni bushing, which you have to use, as well as the press fit in knock. Okay, it has a nickel plated target point, and it has 2.8 inch vanes. And of course the vanes are the fletchings. The difference in a fletching and a vane is plastic or composite, and a fletching is actually feathers. So you have to use the vanes. These arrows have to be just like they are, again, to shoot in NASP or in our 4-H competitions. You can order all these from the website, and I'll give you that website in just a little bit. But this is the only arrow that you're able to use. So how many arrows do you need to order? You need to plan to have 6 arrows per shooter that you're going to have on the line at a time. Okay, you can buy them by the dozen from local shops. You can also buy them from NASP, and NASP actually offers a big box that I think has 5 dozen in them. So you can order those at one time, and we do get the NASP discount on all that through our state program. So we can look at that on the website as well, which I'll give you later on. So you're going to need some targets to shoot at. For NASP, we use an 80 centimeter 10 ring target. All these are acceptable. All these are also available from the NASP website. You have the Infinity target. by Morel. They're on the left. Then on the right, that is one of the Reinhardt targets. You have the block target, and then there's also one by American Whitetail. My recommendation to everyone would be the block target. Seems to hold up the best, does have a replaceable cover. Probably second in command here would probably be the Morel target. I've got several of those as well, but just my opinion, I would go with the block target. Again, pre-COVID, you could have 2 shooters on 1 target. Now, as we're trying to phase out, we're still trying to social distance and do things we need to do. So I would plan on having 1 target per shooter. So if you want to have 5 kids on the line, you need 5 targets. If you want to do the full 10, you need 10 targets. So the last thing I want to talk about on targets is the durability versus how cheap they are. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're going to get a target that you can use at least for several years to get your use out of them. So you're not replacing targets every day. For the Genesis arrows, you can get the styrofoam targets at Walmart. They'll cost you about $17 a piece. You might make it through a season. You probably won't, depending on how many shooters you have. Most of all these targets are around the $150 price point. Some of them are $130. Some of them are up to $200. The ones I'm showing you here that you can get from NASP, but they are going to last. I've got some Morel targets that I've been shooting for well over 4 years now. So just some options. There are other options as well. You can order from different dealers. We've worked with Broad Force targets in the past. If you do that though, they do not have the target sleeves. You would have to order paper targets to put over them like we use in the competitions. But again, we can help you kind of set that up however you're planning on using those. So depending on where you're going to shoot, you're going to need some sort of backstop or arrow curtain. If you're shooting outside, you want to make sure you're shooting into a bank or something like that so that you're not shooting in an open field, because if the students miss the target, that arrow is going to keep traveling. Arrow curtains are especially important if you're going to be shooting inside. So for instance, if you might be shooting in a gym or a rec center or something like that, the arrow curtain is essential. You're going to need it for a backstop. It's probably the most needful piece of safety equipment that you're going to buy. Do keep in mind this is for the Genesis bows. It only has about a 30-pound draw weight limit, which means it's more than enough for all of the Genesis bows. But if you had, a compound class as well, this curtain is not recommended for a compound bow. It's only up to 30 pounds, and for compound they can shoot up to 60 pounds. So just keep that in mind. This is for a Genesis program. These work very well. They are a little pricey, but it's well worth it to keep your arrows and everything confined and make sure those arrows are not going anywhere they're not supposed to, and keeps everything safe. So some additional items that you probably want to have on hand just to make your life easier. Some pieces of safety equipment. You have the finger tabs. You can also use finger gloves, which is what I've got pictured there at the top right. Keeps the wear off of the shooter's fingers. Right beside that is an arm guard. That way, if they're not shooting that bow completely correctly, they overextend that hold arm, then that string is going to slap their arm, and it's really going to hurt. Well, that's what the arm guard is for. It keeps it from hurting the child's arm if they're not shooting correctly. Another one is the bag there. That one is from NASP. That particular bag holds 3 different bows, so if you're planning on purchasing bows for your program, it'd be good to have something to store them in. That way they're not just getting tossed around and banged up and having to constantly fix things on them. A case is a good investment. At practice, it's nice to have some sort of bow tree, and you can get all sorts of these. You can even make one out of PVC pipe, but somewhere for the children to place the bows in between shooting. That way that they're not just standing there holding the bow, they're not carrying the bow down range when they go retrieve arrows. They have somewhere to put it. Another one there is the ground quiver in the bottom center. You can make these out of PVC and some toilet flanges you can get from Lowe's. You can also order them from NASP, just somewhere to put the arrows. They're also welcome to use a side quiver that they can keep on their person, so they can do that as well. But these work really well, especially in county programs. We're going to have multiple kids using equipment, shared equipment, and shared arrows. They know it goes right back into the tube there on the floor. The last one pictured there on the bottom left, that's just kind of a maintenance kit. It's got fletching glue, different fletchings, some nocks, different tip inserts, things like that. That is available from NASP for about $100, and that will keep you all stocked up, ready to fix arrows if you have a child knock one off, it's fletched incorrectly, or just over time they will wear and tear, and you'll have to replace fletchings and things like that. So it's nice to have a little kit there available. And of course, we can go over those things in your trainings and in some classes that we're talking about doing coming up, helping you guys learn how to repair your own arrows so you're not having to go to the shop and spend tons of money every time. So some things to remember, the pricing, some of the numbers that I quoted you, all that is from NASP. You can go to the products and see everything that I've showed you here today at this first website I've gave you a link to here. It's naspschools.org/gear/equipment information. If you'll click that link, that'll take you and show you all of the things that I talked about today. And if you decide to order from them, the ordering form is on there from our schools, and we can order that through the state. Or you can also get a teacher to sponsor and do a NASP program and order it through the schools in your county. So a few more things to remember. You've got all your equipment, kind of know what you need now. So you need some range requirements. You're going to need an area that's approximately 30 feet wide and about 65 feet in length. And this would fit 10 shooters pre-COVID. So you would have several lanes there. Also in your range, you're going to have to need controlled access. Doors need to be locked or taped off. Depending on the area, it's going to be different. But you want one way in and one way out of that range while you're shooting. That way you can monitor access and you don't have people coming in behind your curtain or anything like that. That would be a huge safety issue. So you got to control the access to whatever area or room that you're shooting in. We talked about a gym. If you're shooting in a gym, you may possibly need a floor covering of some type. Unless the shooter's aiming straight at the floor, it's not going to damage the floor because it's going to slide across it. But we don't want to knock anybody's gym floor up, or scratch it up or anything like that. So you might need a floor covering if you're shooting in somebody's gym, or if it's a surface that you don't want an arrow scratching. We mentioned you have to have a certified coach to run the range. They have to be certified through Tennessee 4-H at one of our trainings. We do have at least 2 trainings a year, and we're actually working on some regional trainings as well. So make sure you get with our state committee or Mr. Scott Reese, and he can direct you to that, and I'll give you that contact information in just a moment. Again, you need the arrow curtain or a backstop. Make sure you've got appropriate targets that are rated for the bows you're shooting. Again, everything we've went over today is rated for the Genesis bows. Okay, so if you're going to use something other than that, make sure that that target is appropriately fitted to the poundage that you're shooting so it can stop those arrows. You need some painter's tape or some marking paint, depending on if you're inside or outside, so you can mark your lines on your distance that you're shooting, a safety stop, and a target line. So that way you can lay it down, the kids know exactly where it's at, and they've got a visual of where they're supposed to stand, where they're supposed to shoot from, and where they need to be behind when they're not shooting. And have a good attitude about it. The kids are there, they're excited, they want to shoot. Don't get overwhelmed by any of this. If you have questions, all you have to do is pick up the phone and call us or shoot us an email. And as promised, here is the information to contact either myself or Mr. Scott Reese, who is our outdoor education specialist. Our emails are listed there, telephone numbers. If you have any questions about the Genesis program or our state shooting program in general, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you and get your program up and running and off the ground and have you successful. So again, if you have any questions, please contact us, and thank you for taking part in this program.